of this new product, which name is Genius, and I'm in charge of marketing it and selling it. So that's very interesting for me to have you connected and to present you this product. So I will be happy to talk to you from the SOGITEC showroom, which name is The Cube. This is the place where we have all our new products to present to our customers. So now, let me go first to the agenda. I will present you the company of which I belong, SOGITEC. I will have a few words about how we see the quantitative and the qualitative needs for US education and training for crews. Then I will present you our solution, SOGITEC Genius. Then a few words of conclusions, and of course, questions and answers you will be able to ask with the Zoom chat function. So now let's talk about SOGITEC. SOGITEC is a company which is included 100% in the Dassault Aviation Group. I think you heard about it recently, or maybe not recently. So we are specialized in aeronautical simulation for training, which means that we are focused on simulators, but not only the simulators. I will talk a little bit later about the environment of our products. We are a medium-sized company, 250 employees. We are deployed on 2 locations, Suresnes, near Paris. This is the place I'm talking now, and Bru in Brittany, where we have our development and production facilities. Our company is having a very important activity abroad because we are producing the Rafale fighter simulator, which means that we have more than 60% of our activity which is dedicated to foreign customers. But also we have an important part of our activity which is in France, especially for the French armed forces, of course, French Air Force, French Navy, and French Army too. Because our products are simulators, they can be combined in training centers. So we connect several simulators for our customers, and we include them in training centers. And then we can also propose some products which are connecting different simulators, which is a very interesting perspective for the future of simulation and our activity. What does it mean in terms of product? Of course, as I told you, we are producing several types of fighter for Dassault, for the Rafale fighter, for the Mirage 2000 fighter. And we're also providing some simulators for helicopters like NH90 from Airbus Group. And now we are proceeding to a new type of simulators for new type of aircraft, which are, of course, UAS. This is the reason I think you join us this morning. Talking about services, we do not intend to be only product and hardware and software providers. We want to be involved in the whole process of providing complete solutions for our customers, which means that we are involved in specification, in training syllabus. It can be basic training, it can be advanced training for some particular applications. It can be maintenance training. So it means that SOGITEC has not only the capability to address partial markets, but we are able to provide complete solutions, including the specification, as I told you, the product, and the fact that the product is operated by some of our employees. Of course, we do not do all the development on ourselves because we try to have a smart approach of the market. Simulation is a very wide market now. You have several very interesting products, what we call costs, product software on the shelf that you can use. And if these products are interesting for us, we use them, we integrate them in our solution, and we combine them with our own developments. And we try to be focused on innovation because simulation is moving very quickly. It is fed with many innovations like artificial intelligence, virtual reality, mixed reality. So now we are including all those new assets, the new capabilities in our product. So it means that we have a little bit more than 10% of our income, which is dedicated to research and development. So that's for SOGITEC. Now, let me introduce you some ideas, give you some ideas about what we consider being the requirements for US ISR, Intelligence, Surveillance, and Reconnaissance crews. So I have focused this briefing on ISR missions, not only because these missions are the only missions that are involved and are desiring that need some simulators, but we think that these ISR missions are very high value, so they need high value assets to be correctly prepared. Of course, you can also have requirements for transport with UAS, transports of goods or transports of people in the future. But currently, what is the more important for us is to have this overview for intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance missions. They are difficult missions because most of the time they are performed with beyond the visible line of sight of the remote pilot, which is challenging in many aspects. What we see now is the increase of the operational volume. What is the operational volume? So it's the basic fact that the number of missions is really increasing. Today, in the world, we can imagine that we can estimate that we have something like 500,000 missions every day. We think that in the year 2030, we should have something like 1 million missions every day, which is huge, which needs that, of course, we need additional assets to tackle this increasing number of missions. For ISR missions, sorry, you need now to have a long duration in the air. This is the condition of your success. So it means that these missions are not going to last several minutes. They are going to last, and they are already lasting several hours. So what does it mean? It means that the operational volume is really increasing, and the difficulty is also increasing for the crews and the people in charge of training them. We have also a diversity of the missions and payloads because we have a very broad offer of UAS in the world. Every country now has its own industry, and it's difficult to have adequate answer for simulation to this very important diversity of equipment. So we need to maybe establish a common base to address the requirements of the crews for their training. Talking about the crews, many of the big US operators like armed forces, but also some big companies, they are facing some questions like, how am I going to perform mass training? I have a very important ramp up to produce, to face. So I need to form and to train people in the many trainees in a short period. In the same time, I'm not only going to train remote pilots, I'm going to train crews. So it means that I'm going to train individually these specialized people, but I have to train them collectively. Last point is that the fact that drone sector, US sector is new. So the number of very experienced people, qualified people is low. So we observe a lack of qualified instructors. So it's a challenge for the big organization that want to train their people in this context. Last point is that you have an important increasing requirement related to safety because the regulations are not are currently in place and they are evolving. So it means that you have regulatory requirements to take into account for the training of your crews. And of course, you have efficiency requirements. You have to be effective, you have to be sharp, you have to be safe, of course, but this deserves to be included in the training program. So our assessment is that simulation is a good way to tackle the increase of US training requirements. Now, a short overview of what we could analyze, describe for the ISR missions. We have on the screen what we can call a task cycle. This task cycle is a kind of free interpretation of what you have for the intelligence cycle. So it means that you have several steps which you have to achieve correctly to be successful in your mission. For instance, let's start with the mission preparation. Mission preparation deserves a very important attention and time for the crew, because the areas that you have to survey, that you have to monitor for different types of UAS are broad. So if you want to have a good result on your mission, you will need to carefully prepare your mission. Navigation now is becoming a technical task because it's becoming more and more simple by the simple act of remote piloting. But we think that the environment of the navigation and the UAS is still complex, especially if you fly in non-segregated airspace, especially if you have to have exchanges with the air traffic management now, and in the near future with unmanned traffic management, what we call new space in Europe. So it means that you need to be carefully trained for that. And then we enter with the surveillance task to the collective work of the team. Then the mission starts. You have to operate the sensors. You have to discuss internally with the crew. Every action is in real time, because if you want your surveillance to be effective, you must react quickly to some events which may happen. You have several actions that you have to do for your operation of your sensors. The sensors, they can be very diverse, they can be combined. So it means that for that, Of course, you need training. You need also training if you want to have a successful reconnaissance task. It means now that you're entering, you are proceeding in the success of your mission. So the reconnaissance task is the fact that you need to have a first assessment of something that is abnormal, and then you need to have precise skills and precise collective competencies. Then you come to the identification of a target, which is the pinnacle of your mission. And for this, you need to have the right trajectory, the right sensor setup, and you need to have a very high efficiency to be sure, to be accurate, and to be short. So at least you have the evidence of your mission that you have to send to broadcast. So you need to discuss with your environment, with your operational environment. When you see the last 4 tasks of your mission, it's a race against time. You need to be sharp because the time you have is counted, and the result of your mission is highly sensitive. So we think that it is important to have a simulator to help the crew to accomplish all these tasks correctly. You need to drill the people to make this and to rehearse. So a simulation is very well adapted for that purpose. So when I continue my presentation, I try to sum up what we can say as the usefulness of simulation. Of course, it's very adapted to face the mass training requirements, especially if you have a very short time of ramping up, and if you want to have objective criteria to select and evaluate the crews. It's a question of money and safety, and money can sometimes be very well connected to safety. You have a short instructor resource, so it's interesting to have one instructor dealing with several trainees in the same time, which is usually not possible with real flights. You need to understand that real UAS operations are costly and they face contingency. For instance, the flying authorizations, the available airspace, the weather, they can be very challenging for the crews and the operators. So sometimes they can simply forbid the fact of having real flights. So it's interesting to have simulators doing this job. And of course, you cannot challenge your crew up to a certain level with real operations. You're not going to simulate any kind of failures. So this is something that you can do with simulators. At least we need to have for the ISR missions complex environment. Complex environment needs, of course, realism about what the crew is seeing on the ground, what the crew is having of perception of maritime or an air situation. So it's not always easy in the real conditions because of segregated airspaces or the organization of the exercise being not sufficient. So when you talk about collective training, respect of procedures, decision-making process, you need to make the information correctly circulate, and the emulation of a simulator is very interesting for that. because it's a real way to have the people facing the situation and trying to solve it collectively. So we're now proposing our SOGITEC GENIUS US solution. So as you can now see, it's a flexible solution because it's configurable, which means that the instructor has a choice between several types of US. The type can be a fixed wing, can be a rotary wing, and in some armed forces and maybe in some civilian operating companies, you face the situation of having different types of US to be trained with. Of course, the US size can be adapted. It can be a mini drone from 20 or maybe less, 15 kilograms, can be up to a male drone of 4 tons. So, of course, the altitude and the aeronautical behavior are not the same, and we simulate all these kind of aircraft. And of course, you have a very high diversity of payloads, including armament, including very exotic payloads that we can simulate. And now we already have started the development of alternative payloads to the classical EO/ER payloads. Regarding the requirements of the instructor, we have created a modular simulator, which means that you see that in the fourth photograph at the bottom of the slide, we will have at the end of 2022 ability to have a 8 trainee classroom being trained by only one instructor. So this is something very interesting if you have mass training to perform. And you can also make some different types of training sessions. For instance, with specialized training, if you want to only train remote pilots or only payload operators. And you can also, with a collective training, include newcomers like detachment, liaison detachment, or additional crew members to be integrated in the mission. So modularity is very important because we know that the instructors is very challenged by the quantity and the diversity of the sessions you have to do. At least we propose an immersive solution, which means that we have been very cautious to create a very realistic, a very precise terrain and ground activity, because the ISM missions, of course, their results are depending on the success of your observation and the fact that you can precisely determine the situation on the ground. So our solution is very immersive and very precise for that purpose. But as the drone is flying and we want it to fly in realistic conditions, the crew and especially the remote pilot is connected to an airspace situation, airspace controller. He has a very important and very quantitative air activity to manage. At least we are also creating different conditions that can be very challenging, the weather, the electromagnetic environment, which are always very important to manage for the crew, because with these conditions you may have issues in the navigation of your drone and in the result of your mission of ISR mission. Basic features. So we have created the product, which is now deployed in our facilities in Bru. You see it on the photograph. It's a light configuration, so we didn't have. We decided to have a basic hardware, which is something interesting for us to make evolutions for the long-term support. This is the first choice that we made. So as you understood, we made the choice of the genericity. So we give the operator to have several possibilities to train its crew depending on the type of aircraft he has. Of course, we are not 100% representative of a particular UAS, but we think that our solution can be deployed in complement of specific simulators. We are also producing now some specific developments, which means that some of our customers, they want to have particular features that are not already in the basic version of Genius. And this is something that we already started to do, and I will give you a short example after that. We can connect the simulator with real systems. Of course, we sometimes may have some cybersecurity issues. So this is challenging, but the technical solutions are in place to connect, for instance, the system to an imagery analysis platform, which can analyze the simulated stream of our simulator. Now, as already told you, we are developing some helicopters and fighter simulators, and we are now starting to connect them each other and to connect Genius to, for instance, the helicopter platforms, the helicopter simulator, because we believe that the armed forces, they sometimes and more in the future, they will be involved in combined operations where the good training and adequate training of drone crews and helicopter crews will be fundamental. And last point, we are very cautious to follow the standards. Of course, safety standards that we are now seeing to appear in the agencies like ICAO or EASA, but also with operational standards like standards. Regarding the instructor station, as you see on the screen, you have a very advanced but simple programming functions, because it's one thing to give many opportunities, many choices to the instructor, but it's another thing not to make him being obliged to be an engineer. So the interface is adapted to the level of instructor, but it gives him a very important range of capacities, choosing drones and payloads, choosing the environment, meteorology, electromagnetic environment, and to have a very detailed, very furnished ground, sea, and air animation, which can also be a kind of autonomous animation, because we have artificial intelligence, which is already implemented in our computer ground forces. Of course, we can generate failures, incidents, and we have the ability to manage how we want in real time and after with recording the session. We have already set up some pedagogical objectives that are broken down into performance objective, which is important if you want to assess the level of your trainees. And all of this program is now very highly automated, because it's important for our solution to give a high level of facility for the instructor to assess the level of his trainees. For the remote pilot training station, it's been developed, as you can see on the bottom of the screen, with the respect of the STANAG 4586, which is So it means that it's not a specific simulator, it's a standard simulator, but you will find everything that is required for navigating, for piloting in a regular UAS. So you can have the functions like mission preparation, remote piloting, real-time trajectories management, air-to-air communications, data link management. And of course, you can have the ability of making the people solving their problems collectively, as you can see on the screen, between the remote pilot and the payload operators. As you can see, the HMI is generic, it's modern. We do not have really joystick to pilot the aircraft. It's just a question of having a mouse, a keyboard, and a trackball for operating the payload station. We are now developing a 3D tactical view because we think that this 3-dimension tactical view will be useful in the short future. Currently, we have a 2D tactical view available on Genius. Talking about the payload operator training station. So currently it's EOIR, so electro-optical infrared gimbal. And we are now developing the radar, GMTI and SAR radar simulation for the end of 2022. The functions are very classical. You can prepare your mission. You can simulate the sensor operations, sensor selection. You have many options, and you can make the people work in real time, and if necessary, in delayed time with a short period of analysis. I will come back to this later. And you have, of course, a communication set to enable the payload operator, to have air-ground communications and to be more efficient in its mission and to communicate with the people on the ground. Related to crew work, you have all the conditions to make the people work together because they have issues that they are not going to solve alone. They have to work and to follow some procedures and to have a dialogue and to take the best decision before to be successful in the mission. Talking about the IR sensors, then you have on the right and the superior part of the slide, we have developed a very high fidelity IR sensor. It means that it's correlated to a model, a physical model that we have for the terrain, for buildings, for moving objects, depending on the time of the day, of the season. So the image that the payload operator has on its screen is a very realistic and corresponding to a standard of IR sensor. We are currently developing a simulated stream which is compliant to a STANAG 4609, which means that this simulated stream will include necessary metadata and will be compliant to the full motion video standard, which is important if you want to process this stream with additional sets for the imagery intelligence chain. What is our planning? Our planning is very simple. We have started the development of Genius at the end of 2020, and now we have developed the V0 version in 2021, and now in February 2022 we are marketing the product, which means that we'll be presenting it, demonstrating it in 10 days in Abu Dhabi during the UMEX Syntex exhibition, and we'll have several demonstrations for French armed forces, but also for some civilian companies to achieve. We think it's the best way for the people to understand what we have developed. As you can see, we have also scheduled our participation to Eurosatori and Euronaval, very important armament exhibitions in 2022 in France. We'll have at the end of 2022 a full version which will enable the instructor to train 8 trainees, as you can see on the screen on the right part. In 2023, we will have interesting lesson learned for our customers, first customers, and we have scheduled to implement the additional functions, taking into account this feedback. Of course, we are very keen to introduce some additional technological developments depending on the evolutions of the technologies. So now we come to the conclusion of this webinar. Before letting you having some questions, I hope I made you understand that simulation is not already having an interesting role for education and training for drone crews, but it will be the case very quickly because of the very severe increase of the operational volume and the operational requirements. I hope that you could have the opportunity to see the advantages of our SOGITEC GENIUS simulator. We think it's smartest asset. It's an asset very interesting if you want to have interesting results for a very large basis of use cases and trainees. So we'll be very happy if you want to attend very shortly a demonstration to meet you in the UMEX 2022 in February 21 to 23rd in Abu Dhabi. Will be located in the French pavilion. So thank you very much for your attention. Now, I guess it's time for your questions. Please do not hesitate to send any questions by chat. I will read them and will try to answer them. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions to ask? Okay, please follow your conversation. Okay, so. Joël, thank you for your participation. Okay, I have some interesting feedback, but not precise questions. You still have time. It's not lunchtime already in France, so be free to think about some additional questions. You know where we are. You know who we are. You know what we produce now. Of course, we'll be happy to answer to any additional questions in the future. So I wait a little bit. Thank you for your messages, kind messages, encouraging messages. Wait a little bit. Okay. What is the format of our 3D database? I simply have to check with our technical. I take the question, I take the point, Joel. I have to check what are the formats. Thank you for the question. I will give you a direct answer. So we still have maybe 1 minute to wait before we end this webinar. Okay. So if we do not have additional questions, I thank you once again for your participation, your interest to this very interesting issue, which is the training for UAS crews. There are okay. Oh, I have one additional question. You plan to focus on ISR training session for military concern or to enlarge? The idea is that the market, the ISR and the drone market generally is not going to stay a military market. So we tend to develop our activities for both armed forces and big civilian operators, some of them doing some surveillance missions. So it's not exactly what we can call ISR missions, but some of them, they can be very close to the format and the procedures of the armed forces. So of course, when you have big companies dedicated to maritime surveillance or dedicated to the surveillance of their own oil and gas facilities, for instance, this is a target that we have in our mind. The second point is that drone is not exclusively ISR focused. So we are observing with a very interesting attention the fact that urban air mobility is evolving, and in the first step of this mission, before a full autonomy of these missions, they will need some additional assets to train the crews. Okay, so I hope I correctly answered the questions. For the presentation, for specific missions, some users might ask for real terrain images. Would you be able to insert real topographic using satellites images or else? Of course, we have this in the roadmap of the Genius product, and also on the roadmap of all the products of the SOGITEC products, because this we use general bricks of software and capabilities which are already being developed in SOGITEC, and this function is already operational. So this is in our plan, and this is what I call additional or specific developments, because of course one customer would be very happy, one particular customer, to have its training organized and simulated on a specific terrain. The PowerPoint presentation will be available. Yes, it will be broadcasted on maybe on YouTube, on our YouTube channel very shortly after this meeting. I think that's nearly all. Let me check. So that's all. Thank you once again. See you very soon. For the lucky one, you will be welcomed in Abu Dhabi in a little bit more than 10 days, but we'll be still having our demonstration capabilities in the next spring in Suresnes, in this room. So you will be welcome to visit us. Thank you very much. Have a nice rest of the day. Bye-bye.